Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your host, Jimmy Stewart.
And I'm Tommy Duncan.
The other host of the show, Tommy Duncan, the third, on T3. So Tommy, today's show is a little different. We don't have a central theme other than what's in the news. So we're going to cover some of the topics that are happening as we speak today. So what's going on in the news today, Tommy?
Well, probably the most breaking news, of course, is a lot of interesting things this week, but obviously the royal wedding.
The wedding
this past week.
The royals.
With, Prince Harry.
We're not talking about the Kansas City royal.
No, not the Kansas City royal. Absolutely. But
Okay.
the royal wedding this week, and so it's been a lot of hoopla, paparazzi, and some drama.
Okay.
Leading up to the wedding. This is interesting. So that, I guess, happened early this morning. I think people were turning on their TVs at God-forsaken time.
Do you know people have been camped out along the, whatever the parade route is, or whatever route they're going to, when they leave the church and go out to, people have been camped out there for days. And one lady said she's been there for a week.
Oh, really? So this almost sounds like the when people are waiting for the next iPhone to come out or something.
Yes. Who camps out for days to watch someone drive by with their, I guess, just married sign in the back of the car? Do they do a carriage or do a car? I mean, what do they? I don't know. I've never watched a royal wedding, so but it must be a lot of pompous hoopla for these people to be going through all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I mean, obviously, when you have something like this where you have the first family of an entire country, I guess everyone is so intensely tied in as to what's going on, everything. I mean, I don't honestly pay attention to it that much, but just what they wear when they go out, everything that they say is big news.
Yes.
I guess being from America, it's a little bit different because we don't have anything similar. That probably the closest thing would be the president and his family in terms of what they're doing. But when you talk about generations upon generations being focused on just one family and everything that they do.
What about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Tom? You got to bring up race now. Come on. This has been a lily white family from their existence. Generally, the British, the Germans, and the French have all been interbreeding and marrying each other and sending daughters here and there. That all of a sudden to mix that bloodline up with someone who's not even, I guess, not even British.
Right. Of course, he's British. She's American. And so this is honestly something, folks, that was made for television.
Okay. And how well is she being received? I mean, now she's become part of the royal family. Obviously, she's a product of a mixed family, a mixed couple. I think
white father,
black mother. So I guess she identifies as black.
That's a good question. I believe she identifies herself as biracial.
Biracial, okay.
Biracial. I guess that is a new race identity.
And so is that being well received by the Brits, or is this, or do they care? Is this even an issue with him?
That's a very good question. I think that there is a large part of the population due to her physiology. It's an issue with some folks, probably the blue bloods, who that they want to probably make sure that they maintain a certain purity to the gene pool. They may have a problem with it. There are probably a lot of folks who you would consider to be commoners and everyday people who, say, hey, it's their life, let them enjoy it.
Now she's older than him.
Right. I think she's about 34.
And then she's been married before and divorced.
She was married and divorced. I believe she was married for 2 years to a guy who was in entertainment. He was Caucasian, by the way.
Okay, so not to get too much in the weeds here, we can, I guess, assume that she was not a pure bride.
Right.
Okay.
Typically, they might say that she's a virgin until married, but then all bets off.
Okay.
Very, very attractive young lady.
Yes, she is. She is very attractive. She is that. Okay. So, what does this mean for people who maybe here in America who identify with Meghan, has been a black actress? So, do you hear a lot of hoopla in the black community about a black person becoming part of the royal family of Britain?
I think it is a big deal to a lot of black people, even though she considers herself to be biracial. Not black, not white, but biracial. It's a big deal to a lot of black people because...
Is that the new other category?
Yeah, I think that is. But I mean, interesting enough, I was reading that, you know, Oprah and Serena and some other folks who were actually, you know, there for the wedding.
Wow.
And it's a big deal. I mean, because you actually see...
Well, it is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a royal wedding. That's true.
Exactly. But, you know, just for that matter, you have probably folks who wouldn't have been looking at the royal wedding other than the fact that they are kind of tied into that as well. But this was obviously of very specific interest because she is biracial. Interesting to me. In terms of the politics, maybe that's another conversation.
Okay, now Tom, you can let us all know, man. Did you get up at 3 to watch the wedding?
No, I did not. I was
Okay. Same here. If I got up, it was probably to get some water or something to go to the bathroom, but I was not watching the royal wedding.
But I guess, you know, I'm curious, you know, what people's thoughts are in general too, because obviously this doesn't happen that often.
It doesn't.
It is
That's
a big
true.
deal. And I guess the question is, what does this mean in the big picture for Brits? And since Meghan Markle is American, what does this mean for Americans as well? I mean, when you look at the political side of it, you look at the social side of it, and what that really means, because this is really fairy tale newsmaking
It
stuff.
is. And this type of fairy tale story doesn't really happen to black women. This is new. So you may really peak and get a lot of black people interested in the roles now because of her. Well, not just even black people, just people, period. I mean, she may be to the roles what Tiger was to golf.
Right.
That it was a popular sport, but he made it more popular by being a biracial person. I guess, you know, I would say black golfer, but, you know, I guess we're going to use the term biracial now. Biracial golfer brought a lot of interest to golf. People who are not necessarily followers of golf, who are followers of Tiger. So she may bring a lot of followers into watching the royal family that normally wouldn't. So especially if she got Oprah and Serena, the Williams sisters there, probably some other celebrities got to attend also. So
Right. I think that if nothing else, politically speaking, there will be a lot to talk about for a long period of time. Both of them are very young, you know, at this stage. I think, you know, folks probably even remember when Harry was born. And now he's married, you know, still, you know, very young and spry. And now with this marriage from both hemispheres coming together in Great Britain, I think there'll be a lot of fanfare, there'll be a lot of news as to what's
I remember Harry being labeled as the playboy of the family, the irresponsible one, you know, the guy that looked like he was in trouble. And, you know, not the one that's, you know, heading up charities and doing, you know, great work around the world and represent his family in a positive way. And he was the one, he was kind of the cut up. You know, now all of a sudden, you know, he's, you know, getting married, and, you know, he got his new wife Meghan. And I guess if you're going to be a rebel and chart new territory, this is probably the most rebel thing that's been done by the royals ever. So
I would agree. I mean, because the thing about it is, you know, typically you're talking about, you know, alliances across, you know, certain realms. I mean, if you go back hundreds of years ago, you know, marriages were really consolidating the throne.
Yeah,
they were bringing countries together so that they could grow economies and or strengthen militaries.
You put a seal of approval on treaties with a wedding, man. You know, your daughter, my son, that brought our two kingdoms together and at least kept us from fighting each other.
Exactly.
So, like I said, there was a lot of inbreeding between the Germans, the French, the Austrians. I mean, those royal families of Europe were all interconnected. They were moving kids around all over the place, man, to the sealed treaties. So it's fascinating that of all the women that he had to choose from, that he picked an American actress as a bride. So
my question is this: but what does this mean, or should this really mean very much? Because you had mentioned earlier about usually you don't have these type of fairy tale endings for black women. And she's, again, biracial, not, you know, a black per se, because some folks would look at her and they wouldn't know whether she was a black or not. But clearly, probably biracial, you can pick up. Is this really significant for most black women? Why?
I think there will be some that's going to claim and use her as their hero. And
why hero?
Because, like I said, this typically doesn't happen to black women. And so they're going to hitch their wagon to this fairy tale story and ride for as long as they can. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not putting anyone down. We all have people we look up to and take pride in. But I think a lot of women want to take pride in Megan as their hero because we tend to think that a lot of black women don't really cross color lines and marry white men. Typically.
But that's been, starting to change.
It's starting to change stuff. Yeah, there have been some examples, but typically black women say that they're really not attracted to white men, so they don't go out in large part trying to marry and have families with white men. So, unlike a lot of black men who get charged with searching out white women when they become successful or rich. And for the record, it's not just the rich black men, it's a lot of poor black men too, for that part. But I think for black women, they may use this as part of their inspirational, that fairy tale stories do come true. And maybe your prince is not.
Now, are we talking about fairy tale stories in general? Or?
I think in general.
Okay.
So maybe your prince is not a royal, but maybe he's just a good, hardworking guy who loves you and who will make a good husband and father and provider. So whatever form your storytell takes shape in, at least you can believe that happy endings come true. So, and this is the happy ending for Meghan and for Prince Harry. So I think as long as they're in the spotlight, which they are going to be for a long time, I think a lot of people are going to draw from that and draw strength from that, and that's going to be their fairy tale, a belief that fairy tales come true.
Right. No, I agree with you completely, and I think it was, to your point, very interesting that he made this decision, because I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of women out there who were signing up for that application to be his wife.
And I'm pretty sure the Queen may have been dropping hints. I'm not getting younger. You're gonna have some grandkids. You better do it before I die. And by the way, there's probably a long list of would-be wannabe princesses out there who have some kind of royal bloodline already, or maybe they're part of the upper class or the noble class, as the Brits put it out. But for him to go and find an American actress, yeah, that was big.
Now, one thing that I'll be very curious about, and I can't say that I have the answer to this, but the impact of him marrying a woman who is not British or not European, for that matter, number one, and then number two, being biracial. I mean, that's pretty significant.
Well, I remember when Prince Charles was married to Diana, I think there was some, I guess whatever lineage search they do, try to find if you were of noble blood, that she had, that maybe, they thought there was a connection, that maybe she was of noble birth because someone in her blood, they found out that this person who was married into her side of the family. So she wasn't a blue blood. She wasn't a blue blood, and that wasn't. So I can just imagine if a white woman who is British but who's not a noble causes a little bit of a, not much, I mean, 'cause of course the Brits grew to love her and adore Princess Diana, and I'm pretty sure they'll do the same for Meghan. But I can just imagine that maybe it's not spoken because of her race, but I can imagine there's probably some people who were, like I said, a little more concerned or frowned on that not only is she not British, she's not noble, but she's an American on top of it. And then she's a European, maybe you could have swallowed it a little easier, but anybody but those Americans.
Something, yeah, because at the end of the day, yeah, she, and on top of that, not only is she American, but she's not a Kennedy, Right. She's not from a wealthy family or a family of means and resources.
Now just imagine, the only thing that probably could make it worse is if her last name was Trump somehow.
Now that would have been interesting.
That would have been a big story if she was somehow a Trump and was all married to the royal family.
I'm pretty sure that President Trump would probably been pushing for that marriage.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think the other area that was pretty big this week, obviously, was in the shooting in Santa Fe, Texas. So, had another situation when you had 10 people who were killed in southeast Texas, not too far from Galveston, Santa Fe High School, and I believe there were at least 10 other folks who were injured.
10 injured, 10 dead. That's correct. by a 17-year-old student, and who got access to his father's guns. I guess I had to determine what his story is or why he did this, but this still brings up the other point to me is that this guy had a shootout with the officers.
Right,
So
there was a lot of gun exchange, there's a lot of gunfire exchange.
because a lot of these kids end up committing suicide as soon as the bullets start flying. At them, they don't mind shooting other people, but when people start shooting at them, they know they'll go find a quiet place and kill themselves. That didn't happen in this case. But Tom, I'm telling you, I still feel a lot better if we were to train teachers and give them the option, the ones who are interested, the option to carry a firearm or to lock it up in your desk somehow. And for situations like this, lock the school down. Now in this case, I guess they would let the kids out, tell them to run. But if there's a shooter in the building, I don't know if running through the halls is the best way, because the shooter may be in the hallway. You may run into him, but I'd lock the classroom down and have the teacher, unpack their pistol, and if you walk through that door and you're not someone associated with the school, start shooting. So,
well, because I think you have a point. I think there are several things that we have to address, because this is one of a string of incidents where you have shootings and fatalities in our schools. If there's some place that you should be safe, it should be in the school and in the church. But we've had shootings over the last couple of years in both schools, young kids, and the church as well. So I think, obviously giving training teachers how to use firearms, or to at least something to protect the classroom environment, is one thing, but I think there are a lot of other issues, and I don't know that there's just one thing that's going to address this issue of gun violence, not just in schools, but in America.
well, America is a nation of guns. I mean, it's in our Constitution as a right.
That's how we got the country, I guess.
And that's how
That's how those in power, I'll put it this way, both those in power got the country.
But if you think about it, if we were ever to be invaded, let's say if our military couldn't protect us, which would never happen, but let's say if it did, the next line of defense outside the military would be the citizens, the public. We're a nation with 350 million, I think, our official population, and I think it's been estimated that we have almost 600 million guns in the country. So we have more guns than people. And certainly we have the ability to
We have more phones than people too.
We have more phones than people. And there are some people that have multiple phones. I'm not one of them. One is enough for me. So we're a nation that's built on guns. It's a right for us. And unfortunately, gun violence is going to be part of our dynamic makeup for a long time to come. But there are some things I think we can do. In this case, this parent who, I guess, did not take enough care to lock his guns up. But the one, what was it, in Connecticut, I think, same thing, that the mother had bought the guns legally, and the son was able to get to her guns and take them to school, to the elementary school, and shoot up and kill, unfortunately, a lot of kids. And this seems to be a pattern, or kids just go out and buy the guns legally, like in Florida. So I don't know if there's really a definite answer other than, if you're parents, take some extra precaution to lock down your weapons where kids can't get to them. And then, and I know constitutionally it may not hold up, but there may be some validity to increasing the age to own a gun legally, or maybe purchase a gun legally. Maybe as you get a little older, you may mature a little bit, whereas when you're 18, 19 years old, you're still a little bit of a hothead. Maybe by the time you turn 21, you matured enough to know that this is not how you solve your problems.
I guess the other question is this. I mean, in this case and in other cases, you had a young person, teenagers, who got guns that were legally purchased by the parent, and they ended up killing folks. And so the question is, okay, well, you prosecute the kid. What about the responsibility and the onus of the parent as well?
That is true.
Because at the end of the day, the kid can't get the gun. The gun is in the household. For whatever reason, they're not secured, and folks end up losing lives. When is it going to stop?
Well, I guess you could maybe look at a negligence charge and to say that this was extreme carelessness on your part by not securing a weapon that a child can get access to. But there's so much about law. I'm not a lawyer, because I'm a law school dropout, deals with intent. Did the person intend to cause some kind of harm, or could they foresee this happening? And I guess even with the case down in Santa Fe, the parent can say, well, these guns have been unsecured in the house for years, since he was born or brought the gun, and it's never been a problem. So this is not something I could have foreseen happening in the future, and nor did I have the intent for this to happen. So in our current criminal code, it may be problematic, but we may need to change or look at maybe modifying our laws to where foreseeable consequence or intent may not be the central issue. Just the fact that if you have a gun, you have extra responsibility placed on you to secure the gun to make sure that young people can't get access to it, or they can't get easy access to it. You need to make it near impossible for them to get access to it and go do something like this.
Right, because ultimately, these parents can't get their kids back.
No, they cannot.
And these kids, because there were some adults killed here as well,
yeah.
These kids can't get their parents back. So somebody's got to be held accountable. I mean, whether it's an issue of mental illness on the shooter, the killer, for this matter, whether there's something else, somebody has to be held accountable. And at the end of the day, parents should not have to be concerned about their kids in any school in America being safe. And kids should not have to go to a classroom being afraid for their life. Now, interestingly enough, when we look at what's going on in certain urban communities, whether we talk about New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, we are very, very clear that this has been going on. This is not an issue that's been going on the last couple of years. It has now become a mainstream issue because it's happening not just in poor, black, inner city communities, but now it's hit the mainstream, and now it is on everybody's radar.
That is correct.
The question is, when are people going to learn? Look, you got to address the issue regardless of class, regardless of color, because eventually, as someone said a long time ago, those weeds are going to eventually start growing in your yard too.
Well, you look at the 10 people who died here in Santa Fe, Texas, and 10 injured, and then the people in Florida who died, and then in Connecticut. And when you look around the country and look at the shootings that have taken place, if you add all those deaths up, I submit to you that probably is not even the death toll just in the black community in Chicago for a 2 or 3 month period, let alone for the whole year. I mean, we know that Chicago averages several thousand shootings a year and about 800 or 900 murders a year.
Several hundred deaths.
We're talking on average 2 or 3 people dying every single day in one city. This city is probably a little larger than the city of Houston. But Houston doesn't have anywhere near that number of shootings or murders on one basis. Something's going on. And even though Chicago gets a little attention, but there are other areas that have mass shootings, regular shootings on an ongoing basis, New Orleans, Baltimore, like you said, New York, some cities in California, like South Central or Compton, or some places over on the Oakland side of San Francisco. So we have other areas where there are high murder rates, high shootings. So it's not just something that's limited to Chicago, but the point that you were making, though, is that
Chicago, Baltimore, New Orleans, New York, Miami, I mean, they're LA, they're all over the country.
Yeah, they're all over the country. And normally until the shootings start get outside of the urban areas and start affecting other communities, it's generally just news. I mean, do we really even raise an eyebrow about him with the death toll is over the weekend in Chicago now? You watch the news and 30 people have been shot, 10 killed. Okay, you've heard that story so many times that it doesn't even affect anybody anymore. I used to joke and say, well, I don't even understand how Chicago buy their chalk to outline the bodies in the street. They must buy by the truckload. They can't buy go down to Office Depot and buy a box.
They got to go to Walmart or Sam's.
They got to get a truckload in every month because there are so many killings there. They're going to be going through chalk on a daily basis. And if you're a homicide detective in Chicago, how do you even investigate a stack in your desk today, another stack tomorrow, the next day? How do you do due diligence and investigate all these murders? And chances are you can't, which is probably why a lot of the shootings still take place, because there's not a whole lot of consequences. It probably takes some accidents or a witness or something for you to actually catch the perpetrators. There are probably tons of people still walking around Chicago who killed tons of people who still walk the street.
Right. No, it's absolutely insane. So it's a bad situation. Unfortunately, I'd like to say that there's something I can see that's going to make it better, but I don't see that. given.
But Santa Fe had an officer there. On the scene.
And I think he was there, and fortunately for him, he didn't stand on the outside of the school. He actually went in. He was shot.
He radioed in like, hey, I'm out here watching the building just in case somebody comes out. There's shooters inside, so you have to go deal with it.
Right. Folks, he was shot no harm, so, good news there. But, they did have a resource officer there, and he went in.
Would they actually be more officers in the schools, or the only detectives at the door? I mean,
I think, again, multiple things. I think you have to have, if there was one officer for a school and there was a school of 1,400. So I think you have to have more than one officer. Number two, obviously, gun detectives. And so you have to have points at each endpoint getting into the school to make sure that you're at least reducing the risk that you have firearms coming in there. I think to your point, you have to at least prepare teachers if they choose not to use a gun or to have a gun.
I would respect that.
Yeah, absolutely, but you need to at least make sure that you have them prepared. I think obviously you have to go to the government, because at the end of the day, the proliferation of guns in our country is part of the problem. There are a lot of ways that you have to begin to reduce the risk and reduce the death. I don't think there's one thing.
But tell me, he had a handgun and a shotgun.
And also he had explosives, I think.
And explosives throughout the, he planted throughout the building.
Right.
How do you get all that into a building and no one notices? Okay, now.
Yeah. Maybe it was in a backpack, and they didn't have.
But a shotgun is pretty long, though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But I think one of the news reports said that he was known for like the black trench
coat and boots.
Yeah.
Now, ask me this,
summertime now.
Ask me this, Jimmy. This is in Santa Fe, Texas, near Galveston.
It's a little warm.
And based upon his name, it was Demetrius Porzigas. It sounded Russian. But help me understand this.
Greek?
Yeah, maybe Greek.
Okay.
If this was Ray Ray wearing a black trench coat and some boots,
yeah,
often in his classroom, you try to let you. Do you think that he would not have been investigated?
I don't know how this kid got to school, but if it's Ray Ray or Pookie with a black trench coat walking down the street in the middle of May here in Texas, someone's going to pull you over.
Absolutely.
You're going to look suspicious.
I mean,
so Ray Ray doesn't get the privilege of being able to walk down the street in a trench coat in the middle of May. So
absolutely, because I mean, unless people forget, there was a kid who got shot for having a toy gun, and he was shot to death.
Yes.
He wasn't pointing at anyone.
Which is very, very, very unfortunate. That I think that kid may have suffered from some mental illness, maybe. But yeah, he's in the park playing. The problem there was that the cop car came too close to him. When they pulled up, I mean, he got out of the car and then he started shooting. And that's not enough time to
not put the gun down. Not put your hands up.
And if they were further away, they had pulled into the park and they were further distant, he could have opened the door, got out, hid behind his door, and said, right, put the gun down, or put your hands up, or where I can see them, put the gun down. You could have been a little bit more cautious because there's a little distance, but you pull that close on a suspect, and they turn around and just hold the toy gun, which, toy guns today look pretty real. I don't know if they had a red tip on it to show it was a toy or not, but yeah, he came out that car and he started blasting. But in that situation, they didn't find anything wrong doing by the officer. But I still say the mistake was you were too close.
Right.
I understand you're concerned for your life, but if you weren't so close on this person, there was nobody in the park. It seemed like he was threatening anyone's life. So this time you had to go up there, you had to pull that close to apprehend him. You could have stood back a little further, protected yourself, and then hopefully got him to cooperate, put the gun down, and that kid's still alive today. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Ray Ray or Pookie walking down the street in a trench coat like that, I guarantee you, if an officer see that, like I said, if it's cold day, maybe not. But in the middle of May down in South Texas, yeah, they would have gotten stopped. He would have made it to the school that day.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely keep tabs as to what's going on here. We have a couple of minutes before we finish here. But yeah, that's, again, one in a line of different incidents where kids are not safe in their schools and Americans aren't safe doing things that are American.
And it may not be fair. We can talk about the fairness of it, but it is what it is. And if you're a young black male in America, be aware that you can't get away with the same things that young white kids get away with. That's just the reality. Like I said, this kid's walking down the street with a shotgun, explosive, and a handgun, and a trench coat in the middle of May in South Texas, and I guarantee you, if there was a black kid and the cop saw that, he would have gotten pulled over. He would have been stopped before he got to that school. So there are a lot of other examples, in how we interact with law enforcement. So if you're not breaking the law, you're not doing anything wrong, cooperate with law enforcement. And if you are doing something wrong, I hope law enforcement catch up with you. That's all I can say.
I would agree, because at the end of the day, you have to sometimes be smarter than the people that you deal with, because your life may depend on it.
Your life may depend on it. Keep in mind that there have been many black people who have been shot by officers who are dead, graveyard dead, as my grandmother would put it, and officers still walking around on the street, get to keep their job. It's very difficult to convict a cop, which we may do a story on that, do a show on that. It's very difficult to convict a cop. Even when we have video, I mean, that first trial with Rodney King, how many times you watch that video and said, okay, this is clear cut,
Right.
only for them officers to be found not guilty. I mean, they had to go back to, the federal government charged him with civil rights violation.
This man, like, he stole something from their mama on
Oh, boy.
Everybody saw it.
It had to be
hundreds of
clear cut.
times.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so, all of that being said, you have to respect and appreciate the very difficult job that law enforcement does, but you have to understand that they have to make decisions at the blink of an eye, and you don't want to be on the wrong side.
And when they make one, with their whatever bias or prejudice they have, for whatever reason, right, you don't want to be on the wrong side of that decision when a decision is made. So your best thing to do is help diffuse the situation. Don't put yourself in that situation, and continue to be a law-abiding person, stay alive.
Yep.
Are we ready to do our shout-outs real quick?
Absolutely.
Let's thank Finish 360 for letting us use the places where we shoot our show.
And MOTC Telecom.
For providing the equipment for us, and then For Us Films does our editing and upload to YouTube. Any other business we want to recognize or do a shout out for?
I think that's about it, but of course we want to thank our subscribers and our viewers just like you.
Yeah, so please subscribe. Please encourage others to subscribe if you like our message. Leave your comments, and we promise we will respond to every comment that's posted. And if you have topics you want us to discuss, please let us know.
No, great idea.
Yes. So from Black Men Speak, I'm Jimmy Stewart and
Tommy Duncan.
we hope to see you next week.
That's all, folks.
Bye.